Living my bucolic life, free of big city strife. Horses, chicks, and dogs, they are my neighbors. I cook and sew and spin, and move the horses in to the barn, then time to move them out again. Red barns, green pastures, beautiful white houses, the view I see each day when I arise. This life pleases me, as it is plain to see. I'm living my bucolic life.
Hello. Alright, so this is kind of like a introduction to making this suit. And you saw me make the first mock-up of the jacket. Got that sent off. I think it's pretty close, but I needed to take in the shoulders. So it's time to make the second mock-up to send. And I actually want to do kind of like a test run mock-up where I'm not doing the entire couture, hand-stitched, quilted, everything process, but I'm actually going to use a correct fabric and the interfacings and everything, but more of a, I don't want to say traditional, I don't want to say ready to wear, but more of a basic construction, you know, where it's interfaced, it's lined, it's ready to go. So anyway, I'm going to do that. And at first I was not going to film this. I was going to make it my own personal little secret. But I was thinking, you know what, there's probably some people out there who might want to make a jacket like this, but don't want to invest a month of hand stitching into getting, you know, the exact procedure for couture, but you get the look. So here we are. So the first step in this whole process is fabric, and I have two fabrics here. One that they're both very similar in content, and they are both a woven and everything. One I'm using to make my quickly made suit. The other one I will use to make my long version couture suit. Okay, so this is the one that I'm working on right now. All right, you see that it's a nice, very soft. It feels really nice, but it's actually a home deck. It's a home deck. They call it like a home deck tweed, but it's soft. And what I've done, because it actually does have, you know, stuff on the back, but I've run this through my washer and dryer twice, and it has completely softened it up, and I think that it's going to be really nice, especially if it's lined. There shouldn't be any problem. It does need to be dry cleaned once it is made, though, because one good thing about doing this process is I'm getting a lot of experience playing with this fabric. And one thing I've learned is I can only iron it up to a silk setting on my iron. If I try to go any hotter than that, it makes the fabric texture change and it's not as soft. And I've also learned that you need to iron it, and that's probably why they have dry clean only on this fabric, is because it stretches. I had cut out a skirt, and I made the same skirt that I made that black pencil skirt. I made one out of this and I lined it, but you don't need to see that. It's the exact same process as the black skirt, just with lining. But I'll show that to you on the dress form. But I made that last night, and I cut out a piece, and I thought that it was nice and smooth and everything. Well, as I was putting some stabilizer on it and ironing it, it grew 4 inches. So that was a good lesson to learn on a trial run instead of my main part, you know. And that's another reason I'm trying to get this out of the way first. So let me show you what I'm working on right now. So just so you see, this is the fabric I'm going to be using for my final version. I'm not sure what color it's coming across on your computer. It's actually like a peachy rose color. It's a very nice pink. I like it. So this is going to be the final suit. It's very, very soft. But the one that I'm doing right now, a big part of all of this pattern and everything is you need to have trim. Okay, so before getting started putting it together, I need to come up with my trim. Now, when my daughter was in town and we bought this fabric, I hadn't found this one yet. We bought this one, and while we were at the store, we found this, and it's like, oh, that's fabulous, you know. How great is that going to be with the gold chain and pearls and everything? That's right up her alley. And so I've been playing with this, and this is a nightmare because every time you're going to sew it, you have to remove the metal links, the pearls, and as soon as you remove one pearl, the next one wants to come loose, and it's really difficult to work with. So I decided, you know what, that's not going to work. And in the spirit of all things Chanel, one thing that they do a lot in their workshops is they make their own trim. And so I was rummaging around in my stuff, and it's like, what do I have that would make a decent trim? And I found some gold piping type stuff. You know, that's kind of pretty. I found this edging. Looks kind of like a twisty cording on a piping type of a piece. And as well, there's those two. And then, again, something that Chanel does is use threads from their actual fabrics that they're making something out of to make their trim. And so I braided it all together, and I think I like that. So this is what I'm going to be using. But I kind of spent about an hour this afternoon just poking around. You know, I played with different colors, I played with sequins, I played with all kinds of stuff, trying to find something that would work. So, like, say this is a little pocket piece, and this is the size it's going to be. You know, I'm going to have this as my trim that's going to go up and around and everything. And I think the little bit of gold is going to be nice. It's going to give it some pizzazz, but the little fuzziness of the threads that I actually pulled out of a scrap piece of this, I just picked them off the edge, you know, and braided those in there. I think that's nice, you know. So I wanted to go over that. So if you're planning on doing this too, my first lesson is learn your fabric. Learn the quirks of your fabric, you know, learn what makes your fabric work, because this is going to be quite the experience. Now, here's the other thing. This is what I'm going to be making right now, and it's going to be the shorter version, of course, because that's what I've been working on the pattern for. I'm making this version the way that I would make it. It has nothing to do with the way that the directions show. You know, the directions are all hand-bound buttonholes, quilted jacket and everything. That's not the way I'm doing it. So the very first step in making this jacket, and like I said, I started this with the camera off, but I decided just now, you know what, I'm going to turn this thing on, is because I had such a frustrating experience when I was making the skirt with this stuff and wanting to move. When I was cutting out all of these pieces, I actually fused a very light interfacing to the back of all the pieces. Okay, so you can probably see that's it doesn't look like this side. There's a very, very light interfacing on here. So it's not stiff enough to change the feel or the texture, but it's going to keep it from shifting, and it's going to keep it from stretching. And that's what I want to deal with. That would make it worthwhile to me. So let me show you the pieces that I'm going to be using, how I'm cutting it out. Okay, so at this point, I have only cut out my main fabric. I have not cut out any lining for this, and I will be doing that later though. So obviously I have my 2 pockets cut out with my little piece of trim. I have the pieces for the main jacket here. So this is my side front, and again, all of them have very, very lightweight fusible interfacing on them. I have a 3-piece sleeve, so what's 1, that's 2, and this is the 3rd one, all 3 pieces of the sleeve. This is the underarm place on the bodice. This is the front, the back. Now, the pieces that I do not have cut yet are the ones that are just for lining and are interfaced. Everything else that I cut out, except for the side front, will also need a lining piece made of it. Now, the side front, remember the lining one has a pleat. The one that is the actual fabric does not. It has the easing, and I will be doing this easing part on this jacket. This will be a good test run to see how that will work. So instead of this piece, this one I do not need to cut lining out of, but all of these other jacket pieces, the underarm, the back, the front, and this specific lining piece, that's going to need lining. And the same for the 3-piece sleeve. All 3 pieces of this sleeve I will also need to cut lining from. And I will not be doing hand-threaded buttonholes for this jacket. I will be doing bound buttonholes. Now the lining that I'm using is this. It is a Bember Ground, it's a very nice lining. It's my lining of choice at this point. Now in the actual jacket, everything is underlined with organza. And so that's how they keep it from shifting, okay? I'm not doing that, and that's why I have everything with a fusible interfacing on it, okay? And it's just that very, very wafer thin interfacing that's on there. So let's see here. So I'm not doing the organza. They're doing the organza on the instructions and everything. I'm going to skip that for right now. All of these other little pieces here, this is a piece that will be used in the construction of the side bodice. So this will be actually made out of something stiff. I might make it out of organza. It just needs to be stiff so that I can use it to brace the easing up against. This is just a guide for when I'm making my trim. I can try to form it in this circle so it'll go around its neck. You don't actually cut one of these out. This is for interfacing, but again, at this point, I'm debating on if I'm going to use that since everything already has some kind of interfacing on it. I might add extra, but I'm not sure. This is also interfacing. It goes around the cuffs of the sleeves. Same thing. Once I get into actually constructing it, I'll know more. If you're not using interfacing on all of your pieces at this point, you might want to. This is also interfacing. It's the one that goes around to the very bottom edge, the hem edge of the jacket, to give it a nice stiff edge. And that's the buttonhole one. So that's what we've got. So I'm not actually going to cut all of my lining pieces until I actually need them. I'm going to be assembling my jacket, and when I put it together, I will be putting it together my way. So you're going to see how would Marie make this jacket, not how Claire Shaffer would make this jacket, but I am using this pattern. The next one, the pink one, that will be how Claire Shaffer would make this jacket, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to go ahead and get started piecing my jacket together.